Two. Hello, everybody. After 2 months of waiting, we're back with another FilmBrony Podcast. I am, of course, your host, Nick Canino, the guy who has brought this podcast here, or like or originally like shit um who now like has has the podcast on this channel before since like 2 years ago. But you guys probably knew that. So and as always, I'm not alone on this one. I got a guest with me who started this whole FilmBrony podcast. Would you like to introduce yourself?
So for those wondering about the change in the background, my laptop is currently fucked up, so I'm currently using my dad's desktop while he's at work. I'm sure he won't mind.
Yeah, and my laptop broke too, so that's why I'm using my mom's for a little bit. She told me I could use it, so yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, welcome to the podcast, guys, and why don't we just get started with today's show, starting with our usual stuff, which is the Blu-ray Showcase.
All right, I got a shit ton of Blu-ray, so let's just get this over with. The 400 Blows.
That's a good one.
Amores Perros.
That's one of Alejandro Gonzalez Iñárritu's best movies.
Next, I have At Eternity's Gate.
That's a great film.
Next up is Hey Brian, look at us.
Hello, Eddie. Welcome to the podcast.
Blood Simple.
One of the Coen brothers' finest movies.
Blow.
That's a good one.
Blue Collar.
That's a good one.
I have Body Heat, LA Confidential, and The Player.
Nice.
Body of Lies and Three Kings. The Boy in the Striped Pajamas.
Oh, that is a great film.
Next is before Rian Johnson broke the Star Wars fan base, he directed Brick.
That's a great film.
One of last year's best. Come On, Come On.
I have that film too. I love that film very much.
Coming Home.
That's a good one.
Courage Under Fire.
Nice. From the same director that brought us some Glory and Legends of the Fall.
Mm-hmm. Chronos.
Nice. The Guillermo del Toro film.
Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
That is Ang Lee's finest masterpiece.
And hey, Nicholas Lee, congrats on the relationship.
Yeah, congrats, man.
The Crucible.
Nice.
Deliverance. Donnie Brasco.
That's a great film.
Next, I have, even though I didn't exactly love this movie, Encanto.
Nice. I love that film.
Eraserhead.
One of David Lynch's finest films.
Ernest and Clementine.
Nice.
Next, I have hands down the best film of the year so far. Everything, Everywhere, All at Once.
Here it is. I have it right here.
Florence Foster Jenkins.
That's a good one.
Girl Interrupted.
My mom saw that film in theaters, and she really liked that one.
Yeah.
And it's a good one.
Next is The Golem.
Nice.
Gorillas in the Mist.
That's one of the most underrated films I've ever seen. It's a good one.
Next, I have the 2 animated Hellboy movies.
Nice.
Better than that 2019 movie, that's for sure, I'm sure. Anyways, the movie that inspired Star Wars for more or less, The Hidden Fortress.
Nice.
His Girl Friday.
Nice.
Next, I have a documentary, I Am Chris Farley.
Nice.
I Am Legend, one of Will Smith's more underrated films.
Yeah.
Next, I have The Illusionist, not the...
Still need to get that. I still need to get that film. I have the Triplets of Belleville, but I still need to get The Illusionist.
Yeah, not to be confused with the Edward Norton movie, mind you. Anyways,
right.
The Impossible.
The Impossible, that's a great film.
The Iron Lady.
That's a good one.
Lorenzo's Oil.
Lorenzo's Oil was fantastic.
Loving Vincent.
Nice.
The Man Who Sought Liberty Valance.
Nice. That's a classic.
Another one of last year's best, Mass.
That's a great film. I still need to get that film.
Matchstick Men.
That's a good one.
Next is one of the most polarizing films of last decade, but I really liked it. Midsommar.
I own that film too. I love that film.
Miller's Crossing.
Nice.
My Own Private Idaho.
One of Gus Van Sant's finest films.
Next, I have probably the spiritual successor to September's Blonde, My Week with Marilyn.
Nice. That's a great one.
Next, I have Guillermo del Toro's Nightmare Alley.
That's a great film.
The original Nosferatu.
Nice.
Next, I have Roman Polanski's underrated adaptation of Oliver Twist.
Nice.
Ordinary People.
That's a great film.
The Ratings Game.
Nice.
The Ring, Gore Verbinski's Ring.
Nice.
Next, I have the first three Scream films.
Nice.
A Serious Man.
I love that film.
Shane.
Sweet. That's a great one.
Spencer.
I love that film.
Next, I have the movie that saved the box office last year, Spider-Man No Way Home.
Nice. That's a great film.
Sunset Boulevard. Next is Swiss Army Man.
That's a great film, too.
Nick, you okay there? You kind of... okay, there we go.
Hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
Okay, good.
Okay, Tender Mercies.
Nice. By the way, Swiss Army Man is a fantastic film.
Yeah, right. I did hear about Blonde. I mentioned it.
Also, we got a couple questions. Some people have been asking. Nick, what do you think of Nicholas Winding Refn? He's hit or miss for me.
I've only seen two of his.
I love Drive, and I love Bronson, but I don't like the rest of his films that he's directed. Only God Forgives was a major disappointment, and The Neon Demon was.
Next,
what's that film Ari Aster's coming out with next? Disappointment Boulevard with Joaquin Phoenix.
Looks pretty interesting.
And have you heard of that new NC-17 rated movie called Blonde? Yes, I am very excited to check that one out when it comes out on Netflix in September.
Yeah. Anyways, I have the Texas Chainsaw Massacre in this pretty steelbook.
Nice.
Top 5.
That's a great film.
Topsy Turvy.
A nice gem from like Mike Lee.
Next, I have.
I know. it's been like, you didn't like that movie, I love that movie, and let's just ignore let's just all agree that the bullshit controversy over this is just complete bullshit.
And yeah, I have since rewatched the movie a couple of days ago, and let's just say Grape's now the worst Pixar movie again.
Right.
Anyways, The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent.
That's a good one.
Wonder.
Nice.
And last but not least, You've Got Mail.
Nice. Okay, so is that it?
Yeah.
Okay, so Soren did mention Midsommar and Everything Everywhere All at Once, which I have both of these films. Both great movies, especially Everything Everywhere All at Once. I cannot wait to see this again very soon. I'm definitely going to be watching this again before we start our top 10 best and worst films of this year so far podcast next week. In addition, I also have another Ari Aster film, one of my favorites from 2018, Hereditary, aka the movie that should have gotten Toni Collette her nomination.
Seriously.
Then I have one of my favorite films of 2014, Christopher Nolan's Interstellar.
One of the most underrated films of the decade.
Absolutely. And then one of the best action films ever made, Mad Max Fury Road.
Best film of the decade for me.
It was number 3 on my 2015 list. And Mission Impossible Fallout, one of the best of these, by far my favorite of these movies.
Same here. It was my number 2 that year behind Infinity War.
Right. Then I have one of my favorite films of 2019, Knives Out, directed by Rian Johnson.
Really good movie. Can't wait to see the sequel.
Me too. Okay. And then I got a couple of 2021 movies that I have with me. 2022. Oh, the years keep messing me up. Anyway, Jackass Forever, the funniest movie I've seen this year so far. Ty West's X, my favorite horror film of the year so far. I know you didn't love this movie, Soren, but I did. After Yang. And then I have my number 2 film of the year, The Northman.
I really need to get that movie as soon as it comes on sale.
Yeah. Anyway, that's all for the Blu-ray Showcase, and now let's get to the movie reviews. And boy, do we have a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
I'm going to start out with the film I'm actually going to start out with the film that just that not a lot of people saw, and for good reason, honestly. This movie is infamous for having one of the biggest production delays in film history. It was filmed in 2014, and it was supposed to come out in April of next year, in 2015, and it was supposed to be distributed by Paramount Pictures. But for all of a sudden, for whatever reason, they canceled the project, all because they wanted to have time on the post-production effects. That's fine, but then we haven't heard about this film for like 5 years, until in 2020, when ArcLight Films was supposed to distribute the film before Gravitas Ventures eventually picked up the distribution rights a year later. And after seeing this movie, I really wish this movie went either straight to TV or straight to DVD, because this movie gave me one of the most unpleasant times I've ever had watching a movie this year so far. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm about to talk about one of the worst family movies I've ever seen, The King's Daughter.
I'm so glad I skipped it.
Yep, The King's Daughter. You might have not heard about this. You might probably have heard of this film, but don't know what it's about, and I will tell you. Let me just go to my Facebook page for a second. Now, it's supposed to be a family film taking place that's based on the 1997 novel called The Moon and the Sun, which was what the film's title was originally supposed to be called before it was changed to The King's Daughter. And it's about King Louis XIV's quest for immorality that leads him to capture and steal a mermaid's life force, a move that is further complicated by his legitimate daughter's discovery of the creature. Folks, I'm not even kidding when I tell you this. This is one of the worst family movies I've ever seen in my life. This is one of those movies where it should have just been released straight to DVD or straight to TV instead of theaters, not just because of how cheap and ugly the whole thing looks, but how it is one of the most boring, inconsistent, and reprehensible movies I have seen this year so far. I guess the only redeeming thing in the film is that Chaos Skull Del Rio, I'm sorry if I mispronounced that, but she plays Marie Joseph in the film. She actually does give out a decent performance, but that's about the only positive I have with the film. Everything else is terrible. The King's Daughter, Eddie. Where do I even begin with how much I hated this movie? Well, first of all, not only was the story all over the place, but the script is one of the worst of the year due to having terrible dialogue and terrible character development. Not to mention that the directing is absolutely atrocious since it had no clear direction of what the director was even trying to go for. And to make matters worse, it's directed by the guy that directed, get ready for this, Three Ninjas, High Noon at Mega Mountain, the Hilary Duff film, Raise Your Voice, and the infamous one, the Bratz movie.
Yeah. I know Anima especially hated the Bratz movie.
I'll say this, The King's Daughter is a smidge better than the Bratz movie. I'll say that. But still, this was definitely one of the worst films I've seen this year so far. And not to mention, the acting is absolutely terrible. The rest of the acting was absolutely terrible. Not only does Pierce Brosnan, who I really like and think is a really talented actor, give out one of his worst performances since King Louis XIV, but he has one of the fakest looking wigs I've ever seen in a movie. I mean, my God, you could obviously tell, that the wig looks fake. Let me pull this up for a second. And tell me if this isn't one of the fakest looking wigs you would ever see on film.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw it when you sent it to me, Nick, and yeah. It looked pretty cheap.
Okay, here it is. Let me, yeah, look at this. Look at this.
Yes.
What were they thinking?
Yeah, seriously. And Wainwright, I haven't seen Pierce Brosnan's Bond movies, but I have seen him in Mrs. Doubtfire, and he was pretty good in that.
Yeah, he was great in that film. He was very, very good. Like I said, Pierce Brosnan is a very talented actor, but boy, was he bad in this one. He was bad in this movie. We're not going to talk about it, Eddie. We're not going to talk about it. We're not going to talk about it.
No, we're not.
Okay. Okay. So, and also, rest in peace, William Hurt. It's just too bad that this. It's just too bad that this movie will be remembered as his last one that he was in, despite the fact that it was filmed way before. It also not only is his talent horribly wasted, but so is Rachel Griffith's talent. Both of these actors are horribly wasted because of how poorly written they were. It felt like they didn't even want to be there. Can you really blame them? The cinematography is a glossy and dizzying mess. The editing is atrocious. The pacing is a sluggish mess. The production values and costume design look like something you would see at like a presentation show at a theme park. It's that bad. It's that bad. And I have two glaring issues with this movie. Number one, why the hell would you put modern day K-pop songs in a movie that's supposed to take place in the 19th century? Why would you do that?
Probably because the filmmaker thinks they're Baz Luhrmann or something. I don't know.
And number two, aside from Firestarter, this movie has and Morbius, this movie seriously has some of the worst visual effects I have ever seen in a movie this year. Like, when you see the mermaid in the film, it is laughably horrendous. It is, it is laughably horrendous. Like, it looked like the mermaid looked like something that came out of a PS1 game, an outdated PS1. I shit you not. Like, here, I'm about to show you. Just, yeah, here it is. Okay. Hold on, let me write this. Look at this!
Yes. I only hope they don't hire these effects artists for the Little Mermaid remake.
I hope not either. Overall, and yeah, it does go for those cliches that we've seen in other films before. You've seen this done in other films before. Overall, guys, what else do I even need to say about The King's Daughter? It's one of the most boring, reprehensible, and just downright ugliest movies I have seen this year so far. It may not be the worst movie I've seen this year, but Jesus Christ, this was painful to sit through. 1 out of 10 or a D-. One of the worst films of the year so far. Do not waste your time with this one. Not even if you're curious to check it out. It is not worth almost 100 minutes of your life that you're never going to get back. Do not waste your time.
I'm just glad I skipped out on this movie. It looked pretty cheap, and the way you described it didn't do it any favors.
Yeah, really. Anyway, I think we're both next to discuss the.
Yeah, our next movie review is a movie called Happening. Not to be confused, not The Happening, mind you.
Sorry. Sorry about that.
Our next movie review is a movie called Happening. Not
because it's just happening, mind you.
Right.
Sorry about that.
Damn it! Sorry about that, guys. I forgot to mute the volume.
Yeah, I think your audio is a bit delayed compared to mine.
Yeah, it's fixed now. So
okay, good. So on to Happening. To say that this movie was freaking relentless is kind of an understatement. This is basically about this young student in 60s France who inadvertently gets pregnant and has her life crumble up until she gets an abortion. It is a bit slow at times, but you really feel for the protagonists, and how the screenplay deals with its themes is really unnerving and subtle, something Unplanned tried to be and failed spectacularly. However, there were some scenes involving the procedures that kind of made me sick to my stomach and ultimately made this a one and done deal for me. If you wanted to get through it, I definitely recommend it. But for much more subtle and less tense depiction of the subject matter, I'd recommend Never, Rarely, Sometimes, Always, as it was one of my favorite films of 2020. As for Happening, I'll give it the seal of approval.
for me, this is one of the best movies I've seen this year. And let me explain why. Like Never Really, Sometimes Always, this is one of those films that really does a fantastic job exploring the sensitive subject about abortion in an honest, realistic, respectful, and tasteful manner. And Anne and the actress that played Anne gives out one of the best performances I've seen this year. Her performance was so powerful, especially since you feel the fear that she's going through. You feel the fear that she's going through as she's experiencing this unplanned pregnancy. And back then in 1963, where the film setting takes place in France, it was considered illegal. So it's like, what does she do? And this is one of those questions where if you were back in 1963 and you were in Anne's shoes, you would wonder yourself, what would you do? And the way this movie handles the subject of abortion was very, very well executed. I love the way the story was told, the way it was written, by making the characters feel real and having the dialogue be well written, and the film being well directed, well acted, well shot, well edited, well paced, and the film having one of my favorite endings of the year so far, as well as one of the most haunting musical scores I've heard of the movie this year. That is a huge achievement. I do agree with Soren that Never Really Sometimes, that I love Never Really Sometimes Always a bit more, but Happening is one of the most powerful, haunting, and mesmerizing films I have seen this year. And this is one of those films where, after that controversial overturn, which we're not even going to bother talking about due to political reasons, this movie could not have come out at such a better time than that. This is the most important. I would argue this is one of the most important films I have ever seen in my life. This is one of those movies where it is not an easy film to watch due to the subject and due to this one graphic scene that may disturb some people. But this is one of the best movies I've seen this year, and it's no wonder why this film won the Golden Lion Award at last year's Venice Film Festival. Which, if you don't know what the Golden Lion Award is, it's basically the best picture at that film festival. Yes. It's not hard to see why this film won that award, because, my God, what an outstanding achievement this film was. I know we're only only 5 months away till the end of the year, and there could be other foreign language films that could possibly top this one. But this is my favorite foreign language film of the year so far, and definitely one of the best of this year in my opinion. And without a doubt, it is getting a 10 out of 10 or an A+. Well done, everybody.
Speaking of happening, I can't really talk about it without playing this clip.
What's that?
I hear you whispering.
Oh, no.
Planning on stealing something.
No, ma'am, we're not.
Plan on murdering me in my sleep.
What? No.
What? No.
Eh. Anyways, on to the next review.
What? No. Let's move on.
Anyways, on to the next review, and that's Netflix's Operation Mincemeat.
Oh, God.
First of all, why do I feel like I already talked about this movie today? I mean, it's a Netflix film about British spies infiltrating the Nazis during World War II. And second, why does this have to be so boring? I mean, the story itself is interesting and is competently acted and directed, but it's just 2 hours of people talking about how they can use this drowned corpse to fool the Nazi army into attacking the wrong city. There's no interesting characters, no stakes, no real depth, no information that can't be seen on Wikipedia, and ergo, no reason to see this movie. But honestly, what do you expect from the director of the most infamous Best Picture winner ever, Shakespeare in Loathsome?
Shakespeare in Loathsome, the most overrated film I've ever seen in my life.
It's up there.
Fuck you, Harvey Weinstein. Fuck you.
Yeah, as for Operation Mincemeat, it gets the seal of mediocrity.
Okay. This one I thought was all right. I'm not a fan of the director of this film. I'm not a fan of the director who directed Shakespeare in Loathsome. Seriously, fuck that movie.
And fuck you, Harvey Weinstein.
Seriously. I did like a couple of his movies though. Like I loved Her Majesty Mrs. Brown with Judi Dench. That was a great movie. And I loved the two Best Exotic Marigold Hotel movies. And he also directed The Depth, which Matthew Vaughn was one of the writers of that film for, and I really enjoyed that one a lot. But sadly, those are the only films I enjoyed from this particular director. The story is interesting. Involving this plan that fool the Nazis that would help the British army win. That would help the Allies win the war. One of the keys for the Allies winning the war. But with the way it was written, you don't care about any of the characters in the film because all of them feel like paper thin and just forgettable. Excuse me. The acting is very good. Everybody gives them a very good performance, including Colin Firth. It's very well directed. It's a very well directed movie, and the musical score is fantastic, and so is the cinematography. But the rest of the movie was just like, what was this like? What was this trying to achieve? Overall, this wasn't a terrible movie, but at the same time, I think at the same time, it's one of Netflix's weaker movies. Not a bad movie, but not a good one. I thought it was just okay. 5.5 out of 10 or a C+.
Yeah, it's not really worth seeking out.
Mm-mm.
I believe your next movie review is a movie called The Duke.
The Duke. Oh, yeah, The Duke. All right, let me...
and before you say it, rest in peace, John Madden.
Yeah, we're... Yeah, if you're wondering, John We're not talking about the John Madden that everyone knows. We're talking about the John Madden that directed Shakespeare in Love. So,
Yeah.
Okay, so the Duke takes place in 1961, where a 60-year-old taxi driver steals Goya's portrait of the Duke of Wellington from the National Gallery in London. He sends ransom notes saying that he will return the painting if the government invests more in caring for the elderly. Now, I really enjoyed this movie a lot. I really, really enjoyed this one a lot. I think it's one of the most entertaining and funniest films I've seen this year so far. And it's wrong. It was wrong for him to steal a painting, but you understand why he had to do it. And plus, this was also based on a true story, dealing with the 1961 theft of the portrait of the Duke of Wellington, and how the story was executed was very well done. It was very funny. The acting was fantastic. Jim Broadbent and Helen Mirren were both fantastic in the film, especially Jim Broadbent. What a performance from him. Definitely one of his best performances. Also, I should mention that this is the last film from the director of Notting Hill and Changing Lanes on Roger Mikkel, because he recently passed away this year. So this is his final film. But for his final film that he directed, he went out with a bang on this one. This is a very well directed movie, and the script is clever too. The way the dialogue was written and the way the characters were written, very well done, as well as the humor too. The score is great. The cinematography was great. It's nicely edited. The ending was absolutely clever, and I really like the ending, and it has excellent production values and costume design, since it really feels like you're back in 1961. My only complaint is that the film does suffer through some pacing issues here and there, especially in the middle. But that's it. I think it's one of the better films that I've seen this summer and of 2022, and that's why I'm going to give The Duke a 9 out of 10 or an A-.
All right, so our next movie review is the second movie to feature Karen Gillan face up against her clone, and that is a movie called Duel. If only I can pull up my review on my phone. Give me a second here, and there we go. So this is essentially about a near future where Karen Gillan suffers from a rare disease, so she commissions a clone of herself so that the memory of herself can live on for her friends and family. But when she unexpectedly recovers, her clone gets into the way of life, and they have to prepare for this Hunger Games Battle Royale thingy to fight to the death. While it is slow-paced, the runtime isn't even felt, as it presents you with compelling writing and themes, as well as a great performance or performances from Gillian. So I'm going to have to give this movie the seal of cinema.
I didn't quite love it as much as you did. Granted, I had some problems with like the pacing, and the ending was such an underwhelming mess. It felt abrupt. It felt abrupt, and it just felt like it just felt like they could have just covered like some things about what happened next. But that's really it. The film is well acted, especially from Karen Gillan, who gives out one of her best performances in her career. The way she plays both the character and then the clone, that is fascinating work. Fascinating acting right there. Aaron Paul was fantastic too in the film. All the actors do a fantastic job, but it's Karen Gillan and Aaron Paul that really stand out to me the most. I love the way the story was executed. The script was very good. It was very well directed. This is directed by the guy that did the Art of Self-Defense, which I really enjoyed that movie. And he's 2 for 2 right now with this one. I'm really eager to see what he does next. The musical score is very good. The cinematography is fantastic. It's got some nice visuals. Excuse me. It's very well edited, and and at times the film does offer some clever, quirky humor into the mix as well. Overall, I enjoyed Dull, and I cannot wait to see what Riley Stearns, the director of this film, and the art of self-defense does next. I give it an 8 out of 10 or a B+. And to answer your question, to be honest, I have no clue.
I'd probably say Minions 2, which we'll talk about in a little bit.
Yeah.
Anyways, my next movie review is Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers. And what's with Disney making these critically praised movies that turn out to be mediocre recently? I mean, this wasn't terrible per se, as it's well acted, especially from Andy Samberg and John Mulaney as the two title characters, and it did have a fair share of fun and clever moments. However, this movie seemed less concerned to be a Chip 'n Dale movie and more concerned to be Roger Rabbit 2.0. They turned the Chip 'n Dale world into this multiversal wonderland with all these third-party characters and all these animation mediums like CGI, cell animation, and even claymation at times. However, there's just two problems. A, the animation characters don't even look like they're really there, and B, at least 70% of the references are just there because they can. Not because of any story-driven purposes, just they can. Not to mention the story's a predictable mess. Like, you can predict every moment that happens. It's way too slow, as some of the jokes go on for way longer than they should have, and the film's motivations not only make no sense, but it's kind of a bad form on Disney's part to exploit the downfall of a certain actor. If you see the movie, then you know what I'm talking about. Anyways, if you want to know the full details on why this movie sucks, I'd highly recommend Citizen Hal's review of this movie because he pretty much covered anything. As for me, I give it the seal of mediocrity. I get what The Lonely Island is going for, but this was just a mess for me.
All right. My next movie I'm going to talk about is one of the strangest movies I've seen this year. It's one of the strangest movies I've seen this year, and it's called, and it's a black comedy film called. It's a black comedy film called On the Count of Three. So basically, what On the Count of Three is about is that well, let's just say it's the directorial debut of Jared Carmichael, who also stars in this film, and it's a darkly comic feature about two friends named Val, and played by Jared Carmichael, and Kevin, played by Christopher Abbott, on the last day of their lives. This is the strangest movie I have seen. This is the strangest movie I have seen this year so far. It does deal with the topic of like suicide, and if you're worried that that's like going to handle it in a like insensitive and distasteful manner, don't worry, it doesn't. It does not. It doesn't handle that subject in such a distasteful way. In fact, it actually handles it. For the most part, it actually handles it in a tasteful manner. You understand why the two characters. You understand what the two characters are like going through, and because of how well written the script is, both the characters played by Jared Carmichael and Christopher Abbott feel real, and you understand why they feel like this throughout the whole film. The humor is very weird and off the walls at times, but it's also pretty clever with the way it handles it. It's very well directed. For the most part, the story was nicely executed. The story was very well executed for the most part. The rest of the acting was great too, especially from Henry Winkler, who is not in the movie that much, but he's very good in it. And so is Tiffany Haddish. The musical score is very good. The cinematography is fantastic. It's nicely edited, and And I already mentioned the humor, so I don't need to say it again. I will say this though, there were a couple pacing issues in the middle, and I did, and like Doll, the ending was a bit underwhelming. I really wish they could have done more with that. Also, this is one of those films I just can't see myself watching this again. It's a good movie. It's a good movie for sure, but this is a one and done film for me. I just can't see myself watching this again. But overall, it's a good movie, and I do recommend I do recommend checking out on the count of 3 for sure. But just be aware that just be aware of the sensitive subject that is portrayed in that film. Just be aware. Overall, 8 out of 10, or a B plus. And if you're wondering, yes, this is a better film that deals with that than that fucking piece of shit film.
Anything's better than that fucking movie. Except maybe that SpongeBob episode where Plankton nearly kills himself, but that's another can of worms. Speaking of can of worms,
I already talked about how much I hated Dear Evan Hansen, so I don't need to repeat myself again with that type of shit.
Speaking of can of worms, I have a question. Alex Garland, what the hell was Men? No, seriously, what the hell was Men? After striking gold twice with Ex Machina and Annihilation, I was expecting you to go for 3 for 3. But after the mixed reviews started to pile on, I gotta say, those reviews are generous. This has gotta be one of the most disappointing, aimless, and, needless to say, pretentious movies I've seen this year so far. First off, the story is a complete mess. It claims to be about Jessie Buckley staying in this creepy mansion as she comes to terms with her abusive husband's suicide, but it doesn't really go deep into this. The movie thinks it's this shocking, dark, and deep allegory with a shock value and grotesque scenes, when in reality it's about as deep as a rain puddle on the sidewalk sinks into the words misogyny sucks. The cinematography is surprisingly underwhelming. Alex Garland's camera work is usually striking, but I do not remember a single shot in this movie that was especially unique or stunning. The writing and dialogue are on the nose, things just happen without any rhyme or reason, and it all leads up to an ending that just... Don't
even get... I'll talk about that in a bit. I will talk about that in a bit, because that ending pissed me off too.
So yeah, in spite of some decent performances, good music, and stunning special effects here and there, they are not enough for me to recommend this mess. This might be the most overrated film of the year so far, simply for how aimless and pretentious it is. I'm giving this a seal of disapproval. Let's just hope his next movie is way better.
I wouldn't say overrated, but rather overhyped. But that's just me personally. Yeah. This movie was such a major disappointment. I really wanted to love this movie because Alex Garland is one of my favorite writers and filmmakers working today. I loved Ex Machina. I loved Annihilation. I love the script he wrote for 28 Days Later, which is one of my favorite horror films of all time. What the fuck happened here? No, seriously, what the fuck happened here? Before I delve into my negatives, I'll say a few good things about this film. There are a few good things, but sadly that does not outweigh the negatives. Most of the negatives I'm going to talk about in a bit. So anyway, the acting is very good, especially from Jessie Buckley, who gives out one of her better performances of her career. Rory Kinnear does a fantastic job too. The musical score is beautifully the musical score is one of the most haunting scores I've heard in the movie this year so far. And the cinematography, I have to disagree with you on the cinematography, Soren, because I thought the cinematography in this one was beautiful. It's got some good visuals added in there too, and there's some good practical effects used in the third act, and there's a bit of tension in the first half of the film. Unfortunately, I cannot say the same thing for the rest of this pretentious garbage. Okay, maybe not garbage, but just pretentious, like, just pretentious. Okay, first of all, the story has no clear idea of what it wants to be. Like, does it want to be a slow burn horror film? A slow burn horror film and an allegory of men and misogyny? Or does it want to be a body horror movie? A grotesque body horror movie, I should say. We don't know because the movie never decides because the movie never decides. It's okay to choose both sides, but you gotta carefully balance the tone and story you're trying to go for. And this movie just doesn't do that, unfortunately. Not to mention the script is very, very messy at times. Not only is the dialogue a clunky mess, but the character development but minus Jesse Buckley's character, every character in this movie I could not stand. It's also clumsily directed, clumsily edited, sluggishly paced throughout. And I got to talk about two things in the film that really pissed me off. Really pissed me off. Number one, the ending. What were they thinking? I'm gonna have to spoil this ending because this ending really pissed me off, and I really can't express my hatred towards this without spoiling it. So if you don't want to be spoiled by this film, and if you have not seen it, spoiler warning. That's your warning. Here we go. Here we go. When this comes up, you may when this comes up, mute the volume. When this comes up, unmute it.
And for those who have seen it, let me tell you, you're not gonna believe this shit.
Okay, so here we go. So the ending reveals that there's a three-headed man. There's a monster involving a three-headed man, and then you're not gonna believe who was inside. And then you're not gonna believe who was inside that the whole time. Her ex-husband. Yup. Her ex-husband, who we see, who early on in the film, James Marlowe, played by Papa S. I don't know if I could pronounce it right. I'm just gonna have to type in the description. I'm just gonna have to type in the chat. But you guys probably know who I'm talking about. He's the guy that played James in the film. There we go. Anyway, he was inside the monster the whole time. And what was his reasoning for all this happening? What was his reasoning for all of this shit? He wants her love.
Not only that, when I saw that scene of the creature just birthing out all these men and eventually her husband, this was literally
what? You actually made that twist by saying that her ex-husband wants her love? You ass of shit!
And when that scene happened, this was literally my reaction.
What is that?
That was literally my reaction to that bullshit. Just
Oh
why?
And another thing that really pissed me off about this movie, besides that horrendous ending, I remember back in 2019 when I saw Black Christmas, which, by the way, is one of the worst remakes I've ever seen in my entire life, and one of the worst horror films I've seen in general too. I was brutal. Towards the movie, like bashing completely over and over again. It's stupid. It's agenda message involving like oh men are pigs, men hate, men bad, men are pigs. And you're not going to believe this. They do that here in this one too. They repeat the same men versus women agenda over and over again. Now, I don't mind if you're trying to get your message across in a movie like this, but you need a story. You need characters that feel real. You need characters that feel real and relatable. You need good writing, and you need a story. You need a movie. You can't just make a movie where you're bashing people over and over again with the same message. Where like you're trying to preach it at church. You can't do something like that. And at that moment, when this happened, when they were bashing the same message over and over again, this was literally my reaction to this. All right! God! Let me repeat that one more time. Look,
that movie is just preachy and pretentious.
Yeah. Look, I didn't hate this movie as much as you did, Soren. There are some good things I did like about the film, but sadly, it is not enough to save this from being the most disappointing film I have seen this year so far. I love A24. They're one of my favorite independent film companies working today. And it's just, Wainwright, A24 is not pretentious. Sometimes they make movies some movies that they distribute feel pretentious, like Spring Breakers and How to Talk to Girls at Parties, and even this one. But not all their movies are like pretentious.
No, he's not saying it's pretentious. He's saying that people are calling it pretentious.
Oh, okay. But yeah, I didn't hate this movie, but boy, was it a slog to sit through. Easily the most disappointing film I've seen this year so far, and just one of the weaker films I have seen this summer. 4 out of 10 or C-. Alex Garland, I love you, man, but please do better next time. Please. You're a good filmmaker, and you're a good writer. Please come up with something better, man. Please.
Yeah, seriously. Just talk about Downton Abbey so we can forget about this movie.
Okay. All right, my next movie is okay, so my next movie is Downton Abbey: A New Era, and it's based on the television series of the same name, which is a sequel to the 2019 film, and it's basically a follow up to the first film, where let me look this up really quick. Okay, so it's a follow-up to the first film, and it follows the Crawley family, the Crawley family, as they go on a grand journey to the south of France to uncover the mystery of a dowager countess' newly inherit the villa. While at the same time, there's a crew about to shoot the movie, about to shoot the movie in their own house. The Downton house I meant. I really enjoyed the first Downton Abbey movie when it first came out. I really enjoyed that one a lot. I thought it was entertaining. I thought it was funny, and really something to please the fans of the show. And This one I really like just as much as the first film. Now, other than a couple pacing issues the movie suffers through, that's really my only problem with that's really my only glaring problem I have with the film. Everything else I really enjoyed throughout. I like the story. I like the way it was directed. I like the way it was written. The acting was very good. The musical score, cinematography, production values, costume design. My God, all just terrific. The editing was very good. There are some great amount of humor added into this, and the ending. I don't want to spoil what happens, but the ending was one of the most emotional endings I have seen this year so far. I mean, my God, I didn't expect the ending to like get me all like misty-eyed, but that's what happened as I saw that ending. Yeah, overall, if you love the first Downton Abbey movie, you're definitely gonna love this one. I definitely give it a 9 out of 10 or an A-. A very, very good film.
As for the next review is the movie that coincides with this profile pic, and that is the Bob's Burgers movie.
Yes.
This was a blast for both hardcore fans of the show and casual moviegoers. The characters and humor are extremely endearing into the spirit of the show, and there are some neat Easter eggs here and there for fans to pick up on. The story is interesting and it's mostly well-paced, and the songs are catchy yet kind of self-aware. That duck song seriously is going to stay in my head for days.
Yeah.
And although there are one or two scenes in the middle that drag on a bit, I still say this is one of the better movies this summer, and I'll give it the seal of approval.
I agree. I thought this was a fun movie too. I had to watch all 12 episodes to prepare myself for the for this movie, and I'm well aware there are more episodes of the show. I'm well aware of that, and I'm definitely gonna get to watching all of them. But for the sake of watching this movie, I had to watch all 12 episodes, and let me tell you, after watching all 12 episodes, it did help me prepare to watch this movie. And watching the whole Bob's Burgers movie was such a delightful treat. The animation was great. It's very well directed. The writing was clever with its good dialogue, good character development, and good humor too. I liked the story. The voice acting was great. The musical numbers were fantastic too, and that Sunny song is really going to stick out with me for the rest of the year. It's one of my favorite songs of the whole year so far. And hold on, let me type up the song real quick, because that song really is going to stick out with me for the rest of the year. Sunny Side Up Summer. There we go. That song is really going to stick out to me for the rest of the year, along with the other songs too. They're all great. Family Guy is serious. I agree, Soren. It's the most overhyped adult animation show of all time. Family Guy.
Carlin, please stop trying.
Seriously. I like the way it ended, and overall, I thought it was a blast from start to finish. Again, like Downton Abbey and The Duke, I did feel there were a couple pacing issues here and there, but that's it. And like those two films, I give the Bob's Burgers movie a 9 out of 10 or an A-. This is one of the better films I have seen this summer and of the year so far. Very, very good.
As for the next movie review, it's one of the best films of this summer so far, Top Gun Maverick.
Yes! This movie kicks ass!
Oh, it does. I will admit, I didn't exactly love the first Top Gun like a lot of people do. I just saw it as a fun 80s Air Force movie. However, this one blows it out of the water. It does everything a sequel should do, expand on the themes of the first movie while giving us more of what people liked about the first one. And I found myself caring for the story for once. The performances are top-notch, especially Tom Cruise as well as Val Kilmer. But what really makes this worth seeing are the flight scenes. They're fast, tense, and really make you feel like you're with them on the planes. Honestly, I can see why this is such a smash hit at the box office because it delivers everything that was good about Top Gun and amplifies it to 11. I give it the seal of cinema.
This is one of the best movies I've seen this year, and I'm gonna go. And when I saw this in theaters, I said this. I said this to my mom, and she was surprised by what I said. This is one of the best action films I've seen since Mad Max Fury Road. And I'm going to stand by what I said too, because this is something we don't see a lot in films anymore. This is why this film means so much to me. Means so much to me. This is what a legacy sequel should do. Not just be fan service, just not just be like something of a fan service, or bring back nostalgic characters just for the sake of it. Continue the story while also being clever with it. And not doing it just for the sake, and not doing this nostalgia just for the sake of it. If you bring back nostalgia to drive the story forward, then it works. But if you do it for the sake of it, then it doesn't work. If you do it for the sake of fan service, then it doesn't work, is what I meant. Yeah. But thankfully, Top Gun Maverick does it to drive the story forward, and it works so well. Not just that, it respects the characters and respects the people and why they enjoyed the first Top Gun movie very much. I had to rewatch the first Top Gun movie to prepare myself for this. And the first Top Gun movie was very, very good. I wouldn't call it a masterpiece. There are some issues here and there, but it was an overall fun movie. It was overall a fun movie that does a great job. Like that, it was overall a fun 80s movie. This is one of those rare sequels that does it way. This is one of those rare sequels where it just managed to be even better than the first film. Not only was the way the story executed by like not only continuing the story of the first film, very well done, but the script was absolutely fantastic too. This is one of the best scripts of the year so far. I was surprised to know that this is the first time since like The Ring that one of the writers of the film, Aaron Kruger, actually wrote a great screenplay. Let me repeat that again. The same guy that wrote Transformers 2 and 3 and the first Ring movie somehow made one of the best screenplays of the year, along with two other writers. All I gotta say is, wow. What makes the screenplay work so well is that not only does it respect the characters of the first film, but it brings the new characters, but how the new characters in this one were executed were very well done. I love Miles Teller's character. He was easily one of the best of the year so far. And Tom Cruise Maverick is still awesome as always, and that's what I loved about his character. All the characters were very well developed. And let's talk about the acting of the film. The acting is absolutely terrific. Tom Cruise, I would be lying if I didn't say that this is up there with Jerry Maguire and Rain Man and Magnolia as being one of Tom Cruise's best performances.
And Born on the 4th of July. That's probably
This is now my number 5 favorite performance from Tom Cruise. He did an incredible job with the way he portrayed Maverick in this movie. Miles Teller was great too, and although he's not in the film that much, Val Kilmer gets his time to shine in this film, and he is fantastic. When I saw him in the film, I was moved. I was like, thank you. The soundtrack is fantastic, especially the excellent musical score. One of which was composed by not only Lauren Balfe but also Hans Zimmer. It was absolutely fantastic. The cinematography is fantastic too. It's very well edited. The pacing is terrific. There are some good humor added into the mix, and the flight sequences. Oh my god! Oh my god! The way that they use real aeroplanes for the flight sequences, how it was shot, how it was edited, and how it was directed, absolutely incredible.
Yeah, another example of Tom Cruise going above and beyond on camera.
Seriously. Say what you want about the guy. Sure, he does have some questionable moments, but don't forget, he's a very talented actor. Whether you like him or not, he's going to leave a huge legacy to a lot of people for future generations to come.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I had no issues with the film whatsoever. Everything was just absolutely perfect. 100% perfect. This is not just one of the best action films I've ever seen. It's one of the best films of the year. This is a great film that does a great job continuing the story of the first film. And as a legacy sequel, respects the fans that really enjoyed the first film, and best of all, respects the characters so well.
Uh-huh. I
love this movie. Top Gun Maverick, it's easily one of the best films I've seen in 2022 so far, and so far the best film I have seen this summer. And without a doubt, I'm going to give Top Gun Maverick a 10 out of 10 or an A+.
We both feel the need for speed.
If only I had my sunglasses on for that joke, but oh well.
Yeah.
Anyway. Oh yeah. Hold on. Give me a second. Oh yeah. Montana Story. Montana Story is my next review. So, Montana Story, it's about two estranged siblings who return home to a sprawling ranch they once knew and loved in order to care for their ailing father. I first heard about this film earlier this year in May when it was supposed to get released, and I was also interested in checking this one out because it's from the director of The Deep End, which had one of Tilda Swinton's best performances in that film, and because Haley Lou Richardson was in the film. Unfortunately, I really didn't care for this movie. I really didn't care about this one. That's not to say everything in the film was bad, because it wasn't. It's very well directed. The acting was fantastic. Haley Richardson gives out one of her best performances of her career in this one. Owen Teague is great too. The acting is fantastic. The musical score is haunting. The cinematography is great. And sadly, that's where my positives for the film end. My biggest problem with this movie was the way the story was executed. How many times have we seen films like this before? Like, how many times have we seen stories like involving like characters who have to return to their hometown when their families are sick? And also, the script is a mess too. while the characters felt real, and while I do applaud the character development in the film feeling real, my main problem is the dialogue and the film like having too much exposition. That's what really got under my skin. Like, I understand movies require that, and look, if you want to do exposition, fine, but keep it at like one. But just keep it at like one or two expositions, please, and not the entire, and not almost the entire film where it's nothing but expository dialogue. For goodness sake, the pacing's a sluggish mess. And worst of all, the ending was absolutely underwhelming. I'm sorry, but I did not care for Montana's story at all. It has some memorable moments here and there, and the film is very well acted, but unfortunately, I just found this to be just dull and just forgettable. Not a terrible movie, but this is easily one of the most overrated films I've seen this year. I give Montana's story a 5.5 out of 10 or a C+. Hey, Mike!
Oh, hey, Mike. Hey, Saiga. Mike didn't expect you to be here.
Me either. Welcome to the podcast.
Hopefully you don't send us some scary photos online. If you've seen both of us on the sofas, then you know what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah.
Anyways, our next movie review is Benediction. For me, this might be this year's Stillwater. While the direction is solid and Jax Lowden and Peter Capaldi pulled up playing a Siegfried Sassoon, I felt the problems lie in its pacing. Why did this have to be 2 hours and 17 minutes long? Not only do scenes drag out here and there, but half the time I found myself wondering, what's even the story? It claims to be about a writer suffering from PTSD from serving World War I and come to terms with his homosexuality, but there's these subplots that could have been cut out of the movie and not make a difference. So, not bad by any means, just underwhelming. It gets a seal of adequacy for me.
I really like this film. Yes, I do agree the film is a bit too long, and it does suffer through some pacing issues here and there because of that. And I did wish they would have explored like more themes of like PTSD and homosexuality and stuff. But that's really it. That's really it. Okay. Well, I did wish they would explore more on the PTSD part, but that's really it. For the most part, the story was very good. Terrence Davies did a really good job with the way he directed this movie, and the script was very good too. The film is very well acted too. Jack Lowden gives out one of his best performances in the film as Siegfried Sassoon. He is very good in this movie. Jeremy Irvine is fantastic too. Kate Phillips, Ben Daniels, Simon Russell, Beale, everybody gives out a great performance. There's not one bad performance I found in the whole film. The musical score is fantastic. The cinematography is fantastic. It's nicely the editing is very good. And the film has really good production values and costume designs. And the ending is probably one of the most powerful. It's probably, well, not powerful, definitely one of the most haunting endings I've seen this year so far. Overall, while I did feel the film was a bit too long and it does suffer through a couple pacing issues here and there, I thought Benediction was probably one of the most like mesmerizing and moving films I have seen this year so far. And I thought this is one of the better films that I have seen this year. And I give it a 9 out of 10 or an A-.
To each his own. Anyways, our next review is Crimes of the Future. Basically, this is supposed to be David Cronenberg's return to the genre that put him on the map, the body horror. And this movie did have some good acting, especially from Viggo Mortensen, which after seeing this and History of Violence and Eastern Promises, let's just agree that Viggo Mortensen and David Cronenberg work together like peas in a pod. Anyways, the music and cinematography are appropriately dark and eerie, and has some comparing themes about showcasing surgery as a type of performance art and almost kind of a sexual fetish. However, I feel like it didn't really go deep into those themes, and I found the story really hard to follow. The characters didn't help, and as they don't really have any three-dimensional characteristics other than their archetypes. So if you want to see this type of body horror you miss from Cronenberg, you'll get your moments. But if you want a compelling story to go along with it, you'll be kind of disappointed. So, seal of adequacy, I guess. I still kind of recommend this movie, as it's the type of movie we don't see anymore. I just wish the screenplay got tweaked a bit, and it would have been a masterpiece.
I'm with you. I like this movie. I thought it was a solid return for David Cronenberg. But I do agree with you. The story and the writing really could have been much better, especially when it comes to the character development. Well, the dialogue is fine. It's the character development that I had a problem with. Also, the film does suffer through a lot of pacing issues here and there. I don't mind slow burn pace as long as the story keeps me invested. But there were some scenes like in the middle that did go on and on and on, and I'm just like, okay, can you just at least trim some scenes that we don't need to see? And the ending was very underwhelming, to say the least. I didn't like the way it ended. It felt really underwhelming. But despite that, I did like this movie for the most part. I liked the way it was directed. David Cronenberg did like I said, why I felt his writing was like underwhelming. His directing is a different story. It's a very well-directed movie. If you've seen A History of Violence and Eastern Promises as well as The Fly, you would know that the way David Cronenberg directs the actors in the film is just nothing short of just spectacular. And he does that, and for the most part, he does a good job with that in Crimes of the Future. The acting is very good too, especially from Viggo Mortensen, Leah Seydow. I'm not sure that's how you pronounce the name. I do apologize. And Kristen Stewart all give out some very good performances in the film. And the rest of the actors are great too. The musical score by Howard Shore was fantastic. The cinematography is fantastic. It's nicely edited. And the production values and costume design and the production values are absolutely terrific, as well as the amazing practical effects and makeup. But like I said before, it's not one of Cronenberg's finest films. Like I said, the story, writing, pacing, and ending all could have been a lot better. But despite that, this is something we don't see a lot in films anymore, and that's why I actually really enjoyed myself watching Crimes of the Future. It may not be one of Cronenberg's best movies, but you know what? I had a nice time watching this one. It's a good film, and I definitely recommend this one. 7 out of 10, or a B. And hello, Anna Ladara. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, our next movie review is The Phantom of the Open. This is truly one of the best films of the year about one of the worst golfers of all time. Mark Rylance is brilliant as a man willing to not give up on his dreams of being a quote-unquote professional in spite of his reputation, and the rest of the acting is really good too. It's well-directed, well-written, and sure to make you laugh a bunch of times. So see this movie whenever you can, as I'm giving it the seal of cinema.
This is one of the better films I've seen this year. This is definitely one of the best films. This is definitely one of the better films I've seen this year. While I did feel there were a couple pacing issues here in the middle, this was still a very good film. You know how in 2016, like when Florence Foster Jenkins like celebrated like the world's worst opera singer. Well, this one does that too, except it's about golf, about the world's worst golfer.
And like how Ed Wood and Disaster is about some of the worst filmmakers ever.
Right, and as well as like Ed Wood and like Tommy Wiseau. You know, I'm starting to notice a trend with these type of movies. Like, yeah, I love great things, but sometimes there's some badness that you just can't help but just be in awe. because of how much sometimes they're screwing up. And and that's what works about the Phantom of the Open. It yes, Morris Flipcroft was the world's worst golfer, but at the same time, he was still human. And that's what I loved about. That's what I really enjoyed about this movie. How they didn't laugh at, like, they didn't make fun of him for being like the worst of the worst. They gave him a more of a human personality too. And that's what I really enjoyed about the Phantom of the Open. And it should help that Mark Rylance, who plays Maurice Phil Flitcroft, gives off such a great performance in the film. This is one of his best performances. And Sally Hawkins was fantastic in the film too. She was fantastic. The film is very well acted too. All the other actors give a fantastic performance, including, as I mentioned before, Mark Rylance and Sally Hawkins. It's a very well directed movie. The writing is fantastic. The story was fantastic too. The cinematography was great. It has a good musical. It has a great soundtrack, great editing. The golf sequences were really a lot of fun to watch too, and the ending is very good too, and it has really good production values and costume design. I really, really, really enjoyed this movie a lot. The Phantom of the Open is definitely one of the better films I've seen this year. It's one of the funniest. It's one of the most hilarious, entertaining, and moving films I have seen this year so far. And for that reason alone, I give it a 9 out of 10 or an A-. I really enjoyed this one.
All right, so the next movie is Hustle. And this further proves that Adam Sandler does best when the director lets him take his role seriously. While it does have its fair share of sports cliches and the ending was a bit abrupt, I found myself rooting for this down his luck coach and the underdog basketball player as they beat all odds to make it to the top. Not to mention the soundtrack's very kick-ass. One of Happy Madison's Bear films and one of the Bear films of the year, which I'm giving the seal of approval.
Pacing issues and sports cliches aside, this is a very good movie. And Adam Sandler definitely delivers one of his best performances in the film. He is so good in this movie. And not to mention, I agree with Soren about the soundtrack. It is fantastic. Kick ass, man. And speaking of the acting, not only is Adam Sandler fantastic in the film, but you also get great performances from Queen Latifah, Ben Foster, the guy that played Bo Cruz. I can't pronounce the name, but he is a professional basketball player. He is a professional basketball player, and I'll type the name in the chat so that you guys will know who I'm talking about. He plays Bo Cruz in the film, and he is great. Also, Robert Duvall, as well as Anthony Edwards and Jaleel White. Yeah, the Jaleel White who played Urkel on Family Matters and voiced Sonic in the two early '90s Sonic cartoons is in this movie, and he's very good too. All the acting is good.
Did I do that?
Can I do that? I'm sorry, I just had to. Anyway, excuse me. Anyway, it's very well directed. The basketball sequences were very good in the way they were shot, directed, and edited. I like the story. I really like the story. I like the way it was edited. I like the way it was shot, and I actually did like the ending. I thought it was very good. Okay, maybe not very good, but just good. Overall, it's a very good film. that's worth checking out just for Adam Sandler's kick-ass performance. It's definitely one of the better films I've seen this year, and I'd definitely give it a 9 out of 10 or an A-.
Now, as for the next movie.
Oh, no.
Now, the thing about this next movie is it didn't require any discipline to make. They read what other reboot crews have done and took the next step. They didn't earn the knowledge for themselves, so they didn't take any responsibility for it. They stood on their shoulders of geniuses like Steven Spielberg and Michael Crichton to accomplish something as fast as they could, and before they knew what they had, they greenlit it, they filmed it, they edited it, and slapped it onto theater screens, and now they're selling it. Well, Jurassic World defecation. Like, I didn't think this was going to be good, but I didn't count it making me feel nothing throughout. Guys, the magic and charm of the first 4 movies and even the first half of Fallen Kingdom, and they just replaced it with a story that was somehow overpacked and yet boring at the same time. It was so boring that you can feel every second of its egregious runtime. The music, standard but almost manipulative. The effects, good but not great. The characters, bland. The main actors from the first movie, they seriously need a new spine due to how much they carry this boring mess. And when it came to the climax and resolution, I just didn't care. Because this is the epitome of what this franchise has become. A soulless cash grab that cared less about giving us something new and more about our nostalgia. I would call this one of the worst franchise endings I've ever seen, but you all know they're just going to make more of these stinkers. Seal disapproval. That's one big pile of shit.
I'm going to talk about this film in a bit, but let me just let me talk about this for a bit as soon as I find this, because oh boy, I got a lot to talk about. Come on, you stupid thing. I'm sorry, guys. Just give me a moment. Honestly, Rainwright, I'd rather watch Jurassic Park 3 than this shit again.
Yeah, same.
Jurassic Park 3 was not a good movie, but it wasn't this horrific compared to this. Okay, there it is. I have a long history involving this particular franchise. The first film, directed by Steven Spielberg, is one of my all-time favorite movies. The way they set up the characters, the way they set up the story and stuff, and the way they set up the dinosaurs in that film was absolutely spectacular. The second film, which I feel is one of the most underrated films I've ever seen, was definitely, it wasn't as amazing as the first film, for sure. It has some dumb scenes that I really wish they could have cut out of the film, but I feel the second movie doesn't get a lot of credit anymore, and that's why I feel it's really underrated. The third movie was a piece of shit. And for a while, I thought it was the worst of the Jurassic Park movies. Jurassic World, the first Jurassic World movie, wasn't terrible. It wasn't terrible, but the first Jurassic World movie felt like a nostalgia bait sequel, just for the sake of like throwing in like fan service and nostalgia just for the sake of it. Granted, there are a couple of cool action sequences involving the dino fight at the end of the film and the pterodactyls like attacking the park, but other than that, it was just a forgettable film. Fallen Kingdom.
More like Fallen King dumb.
Yeah, really. Fallen Kingdom, on the other hand, was one of the worst movies I saw from 2018. The way they continue the story and the way they set the characters in that film was absolutely despicable, especially towards the end of the film when it's revealed that Maisie was a clone the whole time and she set the dinosaurs free, all because I had to. They're alive, like me.
Would have been more believable if she said, "I had to." Universal really wants us to make a sequel.
And now we're here. Jurassic World Dominion. Or as I like to call it, Jurassic World Defecation. Folks, I have never felt this angry and this depressed and frustrated at a movie that did not feel like a finale at all since Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker back in 2019. And to say I hate Jurassic World Defecation more than Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker is a huge understatement. You know why it originally had an 88% on Rotten Tomatoes before it went down to a 30%? Because it only had like five or six reviews. Rain, right. I gotta talk. I'll say this. DeWanda Wise was the only actress that does give out a decent performance in the film. But her talent is just horribly wasted due to how poorly written her character is. Okay, maybe not poorly written, but how underwhelmingly written is what I meant to say. This is actually going to get me all fired up. This is actually going to get me all fired up. Okay, so the way the story was executed was terrible. I mean, how the fuck do you have a subplot involving locusts and a subplot involving the Maisie clone, who feels no remorse, who, by the way, feels no remorse for what she did in the last film, take up most of the movie and rarely have dinosaurs in this. How is that even possible?
I don't even fucking know.
The script is absolutely atrocious. Oh yeah, and I forgot to mention one more thing about the story before I move on to the script. Not only it crams in way too many subplots, and as a result, it's just all over the place. The script is one of the worst of the year due to it having messy character development, very clunky dialogue, and an inconsistent tone. Not to mention that Colin Trevorrow's direction was all over the place. You cannot tell what serious direction he was trying to go for or what clear vision he has for the film either. The acting is absolutely atrocious. I already mentioned DeWanda Wise, who ironically is the best thing about the film, since she's the only actor that gives out a decent performance. But as I said, her talent is horribly wasted due to how underwhelmingly written her character is. And the rest of the acting is just terrible. Poor Sam Neill, Jeff Goldblum, and Laura Dern, as well as BBD Wong, Omar Sy, are horribly wasted. And worst of all, remember when I said earlier in Top Gun Maverick that the film does a fantastic job respecting the characters of Top Gun? Well, Jurassic World Defecation is definitely the opposite of that. How they treated the characters of like Alan Grant, Dr. Ian Malcolm, and Ellie Sattler is absolutely inexcusable. They were just there just to be fan service, nostalgia, just for the sake of it. Like for example, remember Sam Neill? Remember Dr. Alan Grant? Remember Dr. Ian Malcolm? Remember Ellie Sattler? I remember.
Hold on, sorry.
I remember.
Yeah, remember when this franchise was actually good?
Oh, big burn right there. And yeah, really. Yeah, really. That's the biggest issue I had with what they did with the characters in this movie. They were just there just to add member berries into the mix. This is not how you bring the characters that we know from the first film into this. This is one of the worst uses of having nostalgic characters in a movie. This is one of the worst uses of having nostalgic characters I've ever seen in a movie. Owen, don't think I forgot to mention Chris. Don't think I forget to mention Chris Pratt and Bryce Dallas Howard. Not only are their performances like, I was very disappointed in their performances since not only did they look bored being there, but since it also didn't feel like they add the personality to the characters whatsoever. Like, they didn't fit the personality to the characters whatsoever, but they have no chemistry between them whatsoever, despite how much the movie manipulates you, despite how much the movie tries to manipulate you into believing that they're actually a couple to this adoptive clone girl, and it really falls flat as a result of this. I love Michael Giacchino. He's one of the best music composers working today. But in this movie, I was very disappointed with his musical score since it's nothing but a scrambled mess of noisy chaos. Not to mention that the film is 146 minutes too long. And I really wish they would have trimmed 25 minutes of it down. I mean, there's a difference between being bigger and better and then dragging out way too long. And then dragging out for way too long. And because of its excessive runtime, Jurassic World defecation sadly falls into the latter of that category. And as a result of this, the movie's pacing is all over the place.
Yeah, this movie tried to be Avengers Endgame, yet it turned out to be Fall of Skywalker.
Yeah, really. And I was also disappointed with the visual effects of the dinosaurs. I mean, sure, you get some cool animatronics here and there, but other than that, they don't look that impressive. Like, how the fuck do you make the dinosaurs this boring? How?
Yeah, after seeing this movie, dinosaurs now make me feel nothing.
Also, there are two glaring issues. Okay, I already mentioned one of the glaring issues with the film being that the subplot, on how the movie crams in too many subplots, including the Locust subplot and the Maisie subplot taking up too much of the running time and not focusing on the dinosaurs. I want to talk about the second biggest issue with the film. Minus the dinosaur fight at the end of the film, every other action sequences in the film was downright awful. And that's due to two reasons. Number one, the movie, and to answer your question, Rainwright, yes, the movie cinematography is a shaky mess throughout.
Like, when is Hollywood going to stop relying on these shaky cam sequences and fast edits?
Seriously. And not to mention, Not to mention, when are they going to stop relying on like those quick cut edits, on those unnecessary quick cut edits and action sequences? I'm not even kidding when I tell you that the editing is one of the worst of the year, since the way they relied on quick cut edits like jump cut this, quick cut edit this, quick cut edit that, quick cut edit this, quick cut edit that, quick like that. Ah, stop it! Ooh. I haven't felt this angry. I have not felt this angry at a movie since like Dear Evan Hansen last year. And I hate doing these types of rants because I hate doing these types of rants because I'm a nice guy in real life, and this is all just for acting and fun.
Yeah, same.
This is not out of like, this is not just out of this is not just being malicious. But when it comes to movies like this, I just can't anymore. I just can't anymore with this shit. Yeah, you guys probably might have guessed this one, but after this movie, I am honestly fed up with the Jurassic World movies at this point. Jurassic World Defecation was, I know it's called Jurassic World Dominion, but I'm calling it Jurassic World Defecation because it deserves its nickname. This fucking piece of shit deserves its nickname. Jurassic World Defecation was nothing but a colossal train wreck and one of the dumbest and most boring and reprehensible movies I've seen this entire year so far. And it's not just one of the worst movies I've seen this summer. It is easily one of the worst films I have seen this entire year. This movie destroyed everything I loved about the 1993 film. Now it's just hard for me to even. I will still continue watching the masterpiece from here on out, since I still think it's one of the greatest films of all time. But it's going to be hard for me not to think about the train wreck that was Jurassic World like defecation after seeing this. It's just... Oh yeah, and one more thing. In the last two Jurassic World movies, I had some criticisms involving the villains being nothing but just fucking cartoon characters. I mean, Vincent D'Onofrio's character was nothing but just a corporate cartoon character, and Toby Jones and Ray Spout in Fallen Kingdom basically ham it up to a 180. But if you thought they were bad, if you thought these guys were bad in the first two, get ready for one of the worst and most cartoonish villains I have ever seen in a movie. He's played by Campbell Scott, who I think is a really talented actor, but his performance was atrocious. And the way they wrote his character to make him look like some sort of like Steve Jobs type character. It's like, am I supposed to take this seriously? Am I supposed to take this shit seriously?
See, nobody cares about these movies anymore. Sorry.
It's fine.
Yeah.
You know what? Let's just move on to my final rating of the film,
Yeah.
because I just this is seriously one of the worst movies I have seen this entire year. I just cannot even believe that. Look, I don't hate this movie because it has Colin Trevorrow directing it, who has clearly had no idea what the hell he's even doing at this point. I hate this movie because it is everything wrong with movies and Hollywood today.
Yeah.
I mean, what? Yeah,
Yes.
Nobody cares indeed. Just when you trump Roland Emmerich's moon fart for me, you have fucked up, sir. You may have guessed it, but I am definitely going to give Jurassic World Defecation my fourth rating of a fuck you of a 0 out of 10. Fuck this movie.
And while I don't hate this as much as Nick did, it's pretty obvious that they just don't give a shit anymore.
And to answer your question, I'm surprised too. Yeah, one last time. You know what? To quote Brad Jones of the Cinema Snob, fuck this movie, fuck the writing, fuck the characters, and fuck this, and fuck everything that has to do with Jurassic World Dominion.
Yeah.
Let's move on, please.
Yeah. Anyways, Brian and Charles, if you're looking for a charming bit of cinema, this is for you. David Earl is terrific as a quirky and lonely yet smart inventor who gets the idea of building a companion robot voiced by Chris Hayward. The writing is both funny and heartfelt, as the two of them have fantastic chemistry. The direction is solid, the other actors are great, and the misadventures they go through ought to make you feel something. So if you're looking for like a live-action, independent version of Wallace and Gromit, check this one out, as it's a hell of a hidden gem, which I'm giving the seal of cinema.
I really enjoyed this one a lot too. I think it's one of the better films I've seen this year. I do think the film does suffer through a couple pacing issues in the middle, and I did not like the way the character Eddie was set up. He just felt like one of those cliched like bullies that we've seen in other films before, and I just wish he could have been more menacing than that. But that's really my only complaint with the film. Everything else is just so good, so good. And we're talking about Brian and Charles, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I love this. I love the way the story was executed by like having this be like a mockumentary. That's like that adds a nice touch to the whole story, and why not only the story works so well, but why the comedy works so well too. And speaking of which, the script was absolute. And speaking of which, the script was so good. Minus the Eddie character I mentioned, almost every other character feels very well written, especially Brian and Charles, who are really one of my favorite characters I've seen in the movie this year so far. And speaking of which, oh yeah, and I forgot to mention, the tone feels consistent. The tone feels very consistent, and the movie has some really good dialogue and good humor in it too. That's what I praise more about the script. It's very well directed. And speaking of Brian and Charles, the acting is absolutely terrific. David Earl was fantastic as Brian, and Chris Hayward was fantastic as Charles. And the way they made Charles in the film was absolutely phenomenal. I really liked that. The rest of the acting was great too. The soundtrack is great. The cinematography is fantastic. It's nicely edited. And the ending is one of the most moving endings I have seen this year so far. I mean, my God, if you are not moved by what the ending of Brian and Charles shows, I don't know. I don't know what to say. I really enjoyed Brian and Charles a lot. It's one of the better films I've seen this year, and I definitely give it a 9 out of 10 or an A-.
All right, and now we get to the movie that pretty much made me depressed from reviewing movies for a while, as well as the second Pixar movie in a row to frustrate me, Lightyear. I already explained why I didn't like this movie in a video of mine, so I'll say this. This movie claims to be the movie that inspired Andy from Toy Story to get the Buzz Lightyear toy, but I highly doubt that since it has little to nothing to do with the established lore. Instead of being a fun space adventure about Buzz and his team of space marines stopping the evil Emperor Zurg from taking over the galaxy, instead it's a boring interstellar ripoff filled with some of the blandest and most forgettable characters in a Pixar film. I mean, say what you will about that Flash animated movie in the 2000s, I at least remember the characters. Here, outside of Socks pretty much stealing the show, I can't tell you a single thing about these characters outside of one of them being a lesbian. And not to mention that Zurg is barely in this movie and isn't really Zurg at all. It's like Pixar wanted to subvert expectations but forgot to do so in a concise and tasteful way. So while this wasn't as bad as Turning Red, it just goes to show that Pixar is losing its touch of the past few years, and I can't see myself looking forward to one of their films ever again. Still mediocrity, one of this year's biggest disappointments.
Can we just agree, though, that the controversy over Lightyear was fucking idiotic, though?
Yeah, all because of a 2-second lesbian kiss.
Of a 2-second scene, like what the fuck? It's just 2 seconds. Get over it.
Yeah.
I thought Lightyear was good, but not great. The reason is because the story felt a bit conventional. The script really could have used some more work with the characters, with some of the other characters, minus Buzz Lightyear and
Socks.
Socks. Yes, Socks. Thank you. And hold on. Let me type this really quick. I'm sorry if it seems like I'm taking so much time. It's just this is why I should have brought a script to this. I don't know for next time, for real. Minus Buzz, Izzy, Socks, and Alicia. I didn't care about any of the other characters in the film. They some of them feel like underdeveloped. If I'm going to be honest. That's not to say the voice. That's not to say the actors are at fault here. The voice acting is very well done. It's the script that I had a problem with. Oh, and hello, Jose. Welcome to the podcast. Yeah, really, Soren. Why do these recent Pixar films have to attract such idiotic controversies? I don't fucking know. They just want to stay. These fucking like either right wing or like a bump. bunch of whining Karens just all of a sudden want to bitch and moan about some scenes that they have no business like bitching about.
Yeah, seriously. Like, why don't we just talk about the actual problems with these movies for once?
Yeah, really. The real problems, not those stupid. Not those other things that I'm going insane.
Let's just talk about the actual movie now.
I gotta calm down. Sorry about that. Yeah, I already talked about the script. I already talked about the story. The pacing it does suffer through a lot of pacing issues at times, and and the villain, the way they revealed Zurg was really stupid. Like not only did it feel cliched, but it made no sense whatsoever. I'm not going to spoil what happens for those who haven't seen it yet, but for those who have, you'll probably know what I'm talking about. Despite that, though, I like this movie. It's nicely directed. The animation is fantastic. The voice acting is great. Chris Evans does a fantastic job voicing Buzz Lightyear. He did a great job voicing him. Kiki Palmer was great as Izzy, and all the other voice actors were great. Even if some of the characters weren't that well developed. Michael Giacchino's musical score was fantastic, was very good. Definitely a huge improvement over that piece of shit Jurassic World Defecation movie, which I'm already done ranting about that piece of shit film. It's nicely edited. The editing is very good. The lighting is great. It's got some good humor in it, and the ending was pretty decent. But yeah, overall, I didn't love it, but it is a disappointment that they didn't love this movie as much as I thought it would. But overall, I thought Lightyear was a good film. It was good, but not great. 7 out of 10 or a B.
Anyways, I figure I might as well do my updated Pixar films. It's been a while since I did one of those.
Yeah.
Anyways, my number 26 is the worst one of them all, Brave. Why does have to win over Rise of the Guardians and Wreck-It Ralph?
Seriously, that made no sense.
Number 25 is Turning Red. Red Panda twerking.
I love that movie, but I agree the twerking scene was unnecessary.
Number 24 is Lightyear. Number 23, you guys are probably going to be surprised it's that high, but it's still not that great. Cars 2.
I still think that's the worst.
Number 22 is The Good Dinosaur. Good, but not great.
I definitely wasn't a fan of it.
Number 21 is the also good, but not great, Onward.
I actually liked Onward.
Number 20 is Monsters University. It's definitely kind of weak, but kind of overhated as well.
Yeah.
Number 19 is Finding Dory.
I knew that would be on there.
Number 18, A Bug's Life. Number 17 is a movie that I thought was okay at first, but I liked it the more I thought about it, Luca.
Nice.
Number 16, I don't exactly love this movie like a lot of people do, but it's still a really good movie, WALL-E.
Really?
I still like the movie.
I understand.
Number 15 is the underappreciated Cars. Number 14 is Coco. Number 13 is Incredibles 2. Number 12, Toy Story 4. Number 11, Cars 3. Number 10 is Finding Nemo. Yeah, I know Cars 3 is pretty high. I know. Number 9 is Soul. Number 8 is Monsters Incorporated. Number 7 is Ratatouille. Number 6 is Toy Story. Number 5, Toy Story 2. Number 4, Toy Story 3. Number 3 is Inside Out. Number 2 is Up. And number 1, The Incredibles.
Nice. All right. Thank goodness we're all almost done.
Yeah.
Talk about the reviews. Next film we're going to talk about is one of the better horror films. Okay. Next film I'm going to talk about is a film I really liked, but I didn't love it as much as a lot of people did. This is one of those films where I didn't like it the first time I saw it, but then the more I watched it the second time, it was actually really good. But I wasn't head over heels like everybody is. And the film is called Cha Cha Real Smooth. It's written and directed by Cooper Raven, which he also stars in the film, and it's about a college graduate who starts making money as a party starter while also striking a relationship with a young mother portrayed by Dakota Johnson. Well, and it's also about and since he's 22 in the film, he also has to like this is one of those movies where he has to question like, what is he going to do in this life after when he moves out of his parents' This is a very good film. It's a very relatable film that I think everyone who's like experiencing problems with like what they're gonna do when they finish like either college or anything. It's very relatable for the most part, and I really enjoyed the story. I like the way it was directed too. The writing is pretty good. Okay. I'll talk about the writing in a bit, but it's very well directed. Cooper Rafe is very good too in this film. Although I'll get to his character in a bit because I had a problem with his character. Dakota Johnson though was absolutely fantastic. This is one of her best performances she's given out. And also Leslie Mann is fantastic too, and Brad Garrett, although he's not in the film that much, Brad Garrett from Everybody Loves Raymond is fantastic in the film too. And he's also from that Julianne Moore film, Gloria Bell, which I really enjoyed. But one of the most overlooked performances I've seen this year is Vanessa Burkhardt as Lola, Domino's Dakota Johnson's character, Domino's daughter. This is one of the best performances I've seen from a young actress this year so far. In fact, it's one of the best breakthrough performances of the year too, because what is great about that performance and the whole subplot is that her character and the real person and the real actress herself has autism. And the way they presented autism, the way they presented the autism subplot in the film, a character who has autism felt real and very well detailed and well done. And coming from someone who has autism, who's on the autistic spectrum myself, I got to give huge props for that. That is a very, very well detailed representation of a character who has autism. Very well done. The soundtrack is very good. The cinematography is great. The editing is very good. It's got some great humor in it, and the ending is very good too. Very good too. Now, the reason why I don't love this movie as much as a lot of people do is because my only issues I have with the film, other than a few pacing issues and stuff through, is the script. Now, don't get me wrong, the script is very good, but what destroyed the script from being like, the script is very good since most of the characters feel real, and since most of the characters feel real, but why the script like falls short at being like perfect, near perfect, is because of the main character played by Cooper Wraith. I understand he's supposed to like represent like a 22-year-old person who's trying to figure out what to do in his life, but minus like the last 20 minutes of the film, he is such a prick throughout. He is such an unlikable prick throughout. Now, I get it. This is how people in their 20s act when they get drunk, but it went on and on and on and on to the point where I'm just like, we get it. Now, granted, he does redeem himself within the last 20 minutes of the film, but I honestly wish they would have done it like towards the end of the second act instead of like the last 20 minutes of it. That would have been a much better move. Despite that, though, I like this movie. Cha-Cha Real Smooth may not be head over heels like Cha-Cha Real Smooth like most people are, but I can't deny it is a very good movie. I think the reason why I also don't love this as much as like a lot of people do is because Apple TV Plus was like marketing this as it's going to be like the next Coda. Well, sorry to break it to you, Apple TV Plus, but this is not Coda. Coda was a great movie. This Cha-Cha Real Smooth movie is good, but it's not Coda great. Despite this, though, it's a good movie, and I give it an 8 out of 10 or a B+. Okay. And I got another one to talk about before Soren and I talk about the last two, and Soren talks about his next movie, and it's one of the better horror films. It's my second favorite horror film of the year so far, behind X, and it's called The Black Phone. The Black Phone is based on the 2004 short story of the same name by Joe Hill, and it tells the story of an abducted teenager played by Mason Thames, who tells the story of an abducted teenager who uses a mysterious phone to communicate with the previous victims of his capture, played by Ethan Hawke. I really enjoyed The Black Phone. This is one of the better horror films I've seen this year, and and let me just get this out of the way too with the scares. The movie does use jump scares in the film, but it's used in a clever and creative way. There's not a lot of jump scares in the film, but how they use them in a very creative and unexpected way was one of the reasons why the jump scares in the film worked. When it's jump scare just for the sake of it, it falls flat. But when it builds tension, a lot of tension, and when it's unexpected, then the jump scares work for the most part. And that's what The Black Phone does. It builds tension, and then sometimes when when the jump scare comes at an unexpected time, that's why it works. That's why it works. And it does it very well here too, as I mentioned before. I like the way the story was executed. The script is very good. It's very well directed. Scott Derrickson did a fantastic job of the way he directed this movie, the way he directs the actors, and the way you can see the vision and passion he was trying to go for with this. It's just amazing. The acting is great too. Mason Thames was fantastic as Vinny. I also loved Madeline McGraw as Gwen, who plays on Finney's sister. She was fantastic too. But Ethan Hawke, oh my God. This is a menacing performance. He is such a menace in this movie. You hate his character because of how much of a menace he is, but the way Ethan Hawke presents that performance, but the way Ethan Hawke performs that villain is what makes his performance very special. The musical score is one of the most haunting scores I've heard in the film this year so far. The cinematography is fantastic. It's very well edited. And surprisingly, I was also surprised by some of the humorous moments that the movie throws in too. There's not a lot of it, but when there is, I did appreciate that. And it turned into overall such a very good film that I really, really enjoyed very much. The Black Phone is one of the better films I've seen this year. While it does suffer through a couple pacing issues here and there, as I stated before, yeah, I know I said it a lot with a lot of films, but I got to be honest with what I feel. Anyway, while it does have that, it was nevertheless one of the most haunting, scary, and intriguing films I've seen this year so far. I really enjoyed The Black Phone. Check this one out. I'm glad it's doing well at the box office. I give it a 9 out of 10 or an A-. One of the better films I've seen this year. Nice job. Well done, Scott Derrickson.
Okay, with all that said, you guys want to talk about the new Beavis and Butthead movie? But anyways, Beavis and Butthead Do the Universe is hands down the best animated film of the year, and proof that my judge has still got it. The chemistry and shenanigans of the title characters is just as compelling and hilarious as ever, and while it does have similarities with Do America, with them trying to score and everything, it's by no means a remake and goes bigger and more daring than ever. Hell, it even talks about white privilege in a light that's not offensive and true to the spirit of the franchise. So if you're looking for the next stop about an Oscar film, this ain't it. But if you're looking to see some dumb fun that's somehow smart at the same time, this is the movie for you. And I'm giving this the seal of cinema.
And can we just appreciate the fact that they're coming back? They're coming back to television screens as well.
Yeah, I saw that trailer earlier today. It looks great.
I cannot fucking wait, man.
All right, on my next movie review is Spiderhead. This is the latest of Joseph Kosinski of Top Gun Maverick about Miles Teller as he volunteers for an emotion-altering experiment. And while it doesn't hold a candle to the director's previous work, as it can be a bit repetitive and slow-paced at times, I found the story and themes compelling, especially in the setup and third act. Chris Hemsworth steals it as a villain, and Miles Teller is just as great. It's also well-directed and has some pretty neat set design. So this might be one of the more underrated films of the year, worth seeing at least once, and I've given it the seal of approval. Our next movie review is Elvis. Holy crap.
Yeah,
Baz Luhrmann's version of the 60s and 70s are really a sight to behold, as the soundtrack and production values really take you back. It's also well-paced as you're always glued to the screen wondering what happens next to Elvis. But it's Austin Butler who truly makes this movie. He's so good that I almost thought Elvis came back from the grave to do this movie. Plus, it has Tom Hanks as Elvis's manager, who's as sinister since that Toy Story Black Friday reel that's been circling on the internet. So whatever you guys do, see this movie whenever you can, whether by going to the theater, pirating it, renting it, whatever. Just see one of the best films.
Go to the theater to see it, please.
Yeah, just see one of the best films of the year so far, which I'm giving the seal of cinema.
I love this movie too. I'm gonna do it one more time because I'm not sure if you heard me with the internet connection, but I'm just gonna do it one more time. Oh. Yeah, Musica. Elvis was definitely one of the best films I've seen this year so far too. I do have one minor complaint with the film. One minor complaint. I did wish it was 3 hours long, because they did kind of like skip some of the time stuff involving like the involving the relationship between like Priscilla Presley and like Elvis, and I wish they could have explored more of that. But and there were a couple of modern day pop and rap songs that really played in the background. That felt really out of place. I understand Baz Luhrmann does that a lot with a lot of movies, but this time it just feels very out of place. But despite that, though, I love this movie.
At least it's not as out of place as The King's Daughter, that's for sure.
Yeah, really. Wait. Yeah, really. Can we just talk about Austin Butler and how he gives out one of the best performances I've seen this year? Like, this is the best performance I've seen from an actor this year so far. The way he performs Elvis Presley, the king of rock himself, was the way he had the charisma, the personality, the energy, and like best of all, the power and triumph he showed with that character. He played to that real king of rock and roll person. That was just absolutely fantastic. And at times it felt a bit uncanny at times because of how he, well, not only does he look like Elvis, but he sounds like Elvis. He sings like Elvis. He dances and wiggles like Elvis. You name it. It was just unbelievable. Also, Tom Hanks was fantastic as the owner, Tom Parker. You hate this character. You hate him because of all the shit he put Elvis through. But the way Tom Hanks brought that persona to the screen is why Hanks' performance worked so well in this. On top of that, the production values and costume design are fantastic. I love the story. I love the script. I love the directing. I loved the rest of the acting. I love most of the soundtrack. I love the cinematography. I love the editing. I love the way it was paced. And the ending is one of the darkest yet most powerful endings I've seen in the film this year so far. Yeah, I love this movie. I originally gave it a 9 out of 10 or an A minus, but then the more I thought about it, the more I was like, this movie is so great by having one of the lead actors give out the best performance of the year so far, that it would be a crime not to give this a higher grade. So I'm going to say this: Elvis is one of the most exhilarating films it's one of the most entertaining and exhilarating films I've seen this year so far, and I'm going to give it a 9.5 out of 10 or an A. This is Baz Luhrmann's best movie in years, and after like 2 duds in a row, which were Australia and The Great Gatsby, I'm really glad he made a comeback with this one. This is his best movie in years.
Oh, I really liked Great Gatsby, but to each his own.
Mm.
Anyways, our last movie is
Not a fan of Great Gatsby, but like I said, to each their own.
Yeah. Our next movie review is Minions: The Rise of Gru.
Oh boy, I saw this today, and this was an improvement over the first film, which was absolutely atrocious. And I really wish I would have had it like higher on. I really wish I would have put this on my worst of 2015 list, because of how much I hated that movie. But it's still not a good film.
As for me, for a sequel to a prequel, which was whatever, this was surprisingly decent. While it does suffer from some stupid Minion jokes and a lot of those moments that are, hey, remember this from the Despicable Me movies, which I hate so much about these.
That was so annoying.
This did have some funny spy and 70s humor throughout, as well as some fun action set pieces for kids to enjoy. However, it is rather pointless, seeing how we all know Gru isn't going to be a supervillain forever.
Yeah, really.
And it has come to the point where the franchise has run its course, so I hope this is the last one. So I'll give this a seal of accuracy, and yes, I do know the irony of me liking an Illumination movie more than both the Pixar movies this year, so sue me.
Sadly, they're not done. They're already making like they're already making Despicable Me 4.
Yeah.
I didn't hate Minions Rise of Gru. The animation is very good. The voice, and so is the voice acting. There are some fun action sequences, and the soundtrack is great too. And there are a couple of jokes that did make me laugh throughout. But yeah, I'm not a fan of this. I did not like this movie at all. The story feels formulaic and all over the place. The script is a mess. It's clumsily directed, clumsily edited at times too. I forgot to mention. It's you know what, for an 87-minute film, it's so sluggishly paced that it felt like I was watching a film for 2.5 hours. And its message and ending fall very, very flat. But overall, I don't hate this movie. It has some funny moments here and there, and it will please the kids. But as someone who loves movies very much, I just didn't care for Minions: The Rise of Gru. I know it wasn't made for me, but come on, kids deserve better entertainment than this. 4 out of 10. 4 out of 10 or a C-.
Yeah, this was okay, but again, rather pointless.
I just thought it was mediocre.
Yeah. And now for a few lists.
Okay.
Since it's been 2 months since the last podcast, it gave me enough time to catch up on the last 2 seasons of My Little Pony: Friendship is Magic. Now, season 8, I didn't hate as much as some people do, but it is pretty lacking. And and not to mention, I thought Ponyville Confidential was the worst episode of the show.
Oh, God.
And this season gave me 2 episodes that officially dethroned them. And let me tell you what they are. Number 26, the worst episode of the entire show, Yakety Sax. That episode just destroyed everything Pinkie Pie stood for. Because apparently what makes her happy isn't making all the other ponies happy. Apparently what makes her happy, truly happy, is playing this instrument from the Yakistan that not only is she not good at, but that hasn't even been mentioned at least once. Number 25 is A Matter of Principles. That movie is just...
This episode was the reason why I hate Discord.
Because at least Ponyville Confidential had Diamond Tiara suffer the consequences, and at least that had a decent moral. That episode pretty much rewards Discord for all the bullshit he caused around the friendship school.
I never gave any episode of that show a negative rate, a negative 1 out of 10. This one did it. This one did it. It broke me. It like angered me, and it just completely missed the point of the whole show. It's just, this episode was the reason why I hate Discord so much. I don't hate John Delancey. He's a very talented actor. I hate the character though. And honestly, they should have just they should have just they should have just let him be turned into stone. They should have let him stay as a stone. I'm sorry. You can argue all you want and disagree, and I don't give a damn. It's just the way they write Discord for the last like for the last like 3 seasons. Okay, not 3 seasons, but for the last 2 seasons, it's inexcusable.
Yeah, seriously.
This episode was the reason why he's now my most hated character of the whole show. Okay, maybe not as bad as Grubber, but still. But still, he's the second worst.
Yeah. Anyways, my number 24 is the Mean Six. Like, what was the point of that episode? Number 23, Non-Compete Clause. Number 22, The End in Friend. Number 21, Mold Down. Honestly, the only good thing about that episode is Spike getting his wings. As for the average episodes, number 20 is A Rock Hoover in a Hard Place. That was an okay episode, but some really disturbing implications.
Oh, God, yeah.
Number 19, Father Knows Beast. Number 18, The Mod Couple. Number 17, Surfing Our Turk. Number 16, What Lies Beneath. Not to be confused with that Robert Zemeckis movie. Number 15 through 14, School Race. Number 13, Road to Friendship. Number 12, Horseplay. As for the good episodes, number 11, Friendship University. Number 10 through 9, School Days. Number 8, Fake It Till You Make It. Number 7, Marks for Effort. Number 6, The Washouts. Number 5, Granny's Gone Wild. As for the 4 great episodes, number 4 is The Parent Map. Number 3, Heartwarming Club. Number 2, The Breakup Breakdown. And number 1, Sound of Silence.
Sound of Silence is my 3rd favorite episode of the whole show, without a doubt.
As for season 9, as a Jurassic World defecation wasn't bad enough of a conclusion. Outside of a decent few,
I still think Jurassic World defecation was worse.
Oh, it is worse, but this
But
season.
still,
But this season has got to be the worst of the entire season.
I agree.
Outside a few good episodes, most of the episodes are just rushed and were just written for fan service.
Just fan service just for the sake of it. And Wainwright, I don't care what you say, Blood Accord is not canon!
Yeah, seriously. As for the bad episodes,
There was no confirmation that it was canon. No confirmation.
yeah, seriously. As for the bad episodes, my number 26 is Frenemies. That movie is just bickering and arguing just for the sake of it. Number 25 through 24 is the beginning of the end.
One of the most overrated episodes I've ever seen. Easily.
Number 23, She Talks to Angel. Number 22, 246 Great. Number 21, A Trivial Pursuit. Number 20 is Dragon Dropped. As for the mediocre episodes, number 19, The Last Problem. This is how you end the entire series, huh? With thunderous indifference. Number 18, The Summer Sun Setback. Number 17, Between Dark and Dawn. Number 16 to 15, The Ending of the End. Outside a few great fight scenes, that finale is just... why?
That twist was awful.
Number 14, Sweet and Smoky. And number 13, Sparkle 7. As for
Sparkle Center is extremely overrated too.
As for the average episodes, number 12, Growing Up is Hard to Do, number 11, Student Council, and number 10, Uprooted. As for the few good episodes, number 9, She's All Yak, number 8, Going to Seed, number 7, A Horseshoeing, number 6, Common Ground, number 5, The Point of No Return, number 4, The Last Crusade, number 3 is Staring Doubt, and as for the 2, count them, the 2 great episodes in this season, number 2, The Last Laugh, and number 1, The Big Mac Question.
Yes! Yes! I have to say number 1.
That still doesn't save this total mess of a season, though.
Yeah, really. Yeah, really. You know what? That was the only A+ I gave that season. That was the only episode from that season I gave an A+. It's my fifth favorite episode behind I already mentioned Sound of, well, my 4 behind Sound of Silence, Amending Fences and The Perfect Pair. And one more thing before we move on, I want to apologize again. I want to apologize to Rainwright. Look, I know we have our disagreements, and I didn't mean this out of malicious, and I didn't mean this out of malice. It's just it's just after what the fandom has like done to me, it's just I'm just getting, after what the Fluttercore fandom has done to me, it's just I'm just getting sick of it. That's why I just had to get it off my chest. And Rainwright, I'm sorry for yelling at you like that. That was completely wrong for me to do so, and it's just going to come back to bite me in the ass after this.
Yeah. As for the last 2 lists,
I'm a terrible person.
As for the 2 lists I have before we end this podcast, the 10 most underrated and overrated films of the 2020 so far. As for underrated, my honorable mentions are The Witches, Willy's Wonderland, Those Who Wish Me Dead, Cruella, The Forever Purge, Venom Let There Be Carnage, Finch, Memory, and Spiderhead. Number 10 is Thor Love and Thunder, which I'll talk about in the next podcast. Number 9, Wrath of Man. Number 8 is Tenet. Number 7, Ghostbusters Afterlife. Number 6, Respect. Number 5, Sonic the Hedgehog 2. Number 4, The Midnight Sky. Number 3, The Hunt. Number 2, The Tomorrow War. And number 1 is Annette. As for overrated, my dishonorable mentions are Farmageddon, Wolfwalkers, Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers, and Benediction. Number 10 is a tie between Meal at the Edge of War and Operation Mincemeat. Number 9 is After Yang. Number 8 is Run. Number 7, My Little Pony: A New Generation. Number 6 is Turning Red. Number 5, Apollo 10.5. Number 4 is Men. Number 3, I'm Thinking of Ending Things. Number 2 is Cuties. Yes, this does actually have a good score on Rotten Tomatoes, and I don't understand why. And number 1 is Don't Look Up. Let's just be glad that piece of shit movie got 0 Oscars.
Yeah, really. I don't have any overrated. I don't have that much like overrated films I've seen this decade so far, but I will say my top 5 most overrated films of the decade are number 5, Titan. I'm sorry, but I don't think that film. I don't think the film is all that great. It's not terrible. I do applaud Julie Ducournau for what she did, but it's just I just wish it was a lot better than this. Number 4, currently my most overrated film of the year so far, Operation Mincemeat. Oh no, wait, Montana Story. I'm sorry, Montana Story. Number 3. Charlie Kaufman's I'm Thinking of Ending Things. And number 2. Oh, no, wait. Actually, number 5 was Apollo 10.5, the Richard Linklater film. Again, I don't hate the film, but but I just wish it could have been a lot better. And then I already mentioned Titan, number 4, and number 3 being Operation Mincemeat, the most overrated film I've seen this year so far. Number 2 is Montana Story. Actually, yeah, Operation Mincemeat was originally my pick for the most overrated film of the year until I saw Montana Story. I still think that film was a bit overrated. And number 1, the most overrated film I've seen this decade so far, Sean Baker's Red Rocket. All right, thank goodness we're done.
Yeah. Well, tune in next week as we go over the worst and best films of the year so far.
Yeah, and again, I do apologize for my shouting rant at times. And I do apologize again to Rainwright for screaming at him. Again, I'm sorry. It wasn't out of disrespect, and it wasn't out of malice. It's I just had to vent this off my chest. But I know this is going to come and bite me in the ass after this. Well, stay tuned next time for the top 10, which is next week for the top 10 best and worst films that Soren and I saw this year so far. And until then, hope you guys have a great day, and hope you guys have a great weekend. And until we meet again next week for the 10 worst and best films of this year so far, have a good one.
All right.